enjin Malaysia di atas kejayaan mengagumkan di Sukan C ke-32. Syabas! Apakah takrifan anda tentang Magis K?
너희들은 주인이고 사격 자세 준비!
오빠?
당신 누구야?
나예요. 그 스컹크. 대선에 출마하려고 합니다.
누나?
제 아버지 살해 사건과 관계 있는 사람이라고.
플롯 yang baik?
모든 걸 겸비한 섹시 가이. 걔 피가 아티스트 블러드잖아.
그냥 이벤트에서 나가요.
Segalanya mungkin.
사람 죽이는 건 심플해. 애 키우는 거 얘기하면.
Yang terhebat, anda boleh stream semuanya di sini dengan Astro Baharu.
What's the latest scoop when it comes to companies, markets and strategies? For everything business and tech related, catch Notepad with me, Ibrahim Sani, weekdays 10:30 p.m. across all AWANI platforms.
Dua minggu lepas, ada 2 orang anggota polis kita mati kena bunuh. Dan semuanya itu berlaku kerana Mamat ni, bekas anggota polis. Kau tahu tak, Reza dengan Kai dulu, partner?
I tenang. Tak ada buaya.
Sekarang kau faham. Bagi dua anak gila tu. Bila nak kerja gini? Pencen nanti tobat tak apa. Aku suruh kau orang keluar masuk siap-siap. Bukannya senang, pasti peluru dekat sana. Tengah Ricky, bom itu bersambut. Kami aku tanya kau, kalau kau ada anak isteri, mana tanggungjawab kau? Tanggungjawab kau pada diorang batu pada kerja kau. Kai, kita dah tak ada masa, Kai. Kai! Kau dengan aku, kita lain, boh.
Good evening, I'm Fanasha and you're tuning into AWANI Tonight. The investigation into fugitive businessman Jho Low with regards to the One Malaysia Development Berhad or 1MDB will not stop until he is brought back to the country, says Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Akril Sani Abdullah Sani. He said the police and the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC will work together and discuss further options for his return.
Besides a $3.78 billion suit filed by 1MDB and its 4 subsidiaries, Jho Low is also facing criminal charges. He was slapped with 8 charges in absentia in 2018 under the Anti-Money Laundering and Anti-Terrorism Financing Acts. Last week, the Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the government is currently negotiating with the country concerned to expedite the process of his return, but he did not confirm the whereabouts of the fugitive businessman. Anwar added that the process is complex due to the involvement of other countries as well as intelligence services and the Interpol. Multiple countries have opened investigations into 1MDB, including the US, the United Kingdom, Switzerland and Singapore. Just last month, a Kuwaiti court has sentenced Jho Low to 10 years of imprisonment in absentia on money laundering charges.
The Aerotrain replacement program at the main terminal in KLIA is on track, with one rail line expected to be up and running by June 2024. According to Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad MAHB, Aerotrain operations is currently being suspended until further notice since March this year.
Prior to the suspension, the 25-year-old Aerotrain service received much backlash over frequent breakdowns. Last year, it was reported that the Aerotrain replacement program was expected to be completed in 2025, involving 9 Aerotrains worth some 700 million ringgit to be implemented in 2 phases. Meanwhile, 2 new initiatives, Stardust and Easy Bags, were introduced by MAHB at KLIA as part of the airport's digital transformation. Through Stardesk, KLIA will be able to validate and address passenger feedback within 15 minutes and ensure resolutions are undertaken as soon as possible. EasyBags, meanwhile, enables passengers to check in their baggage faster and more efficiently, with each bag taking only 45 seconds to process.
In other news, Law and Institutional Reform Minister Dato' Sri Azalina Uthman Said acknowledges that it is the right of the Malaysian Bar to pass a no-confidence vote against Attorney General Tan Sri Idrus Harun. Therefore, she said the government must be open in accepting criticism from the people or professional bodies such as the legal body.
She added that the current government is a government that practices democracy and they must be open to criticism. Other than that, the Pengerang MP said that the government must also be a responsible government and emphasize transparency as well as accountability. The no-confidence vote was part of a resolution on the independence of the judiciary and upholding the rule of law, which was adopted at the Malaysian Bar's Extraordinary General Meeting last Wednesday.
Meanwhile, the federal government is allocating some 104 million ringgit to imams, bilals and religious teachers in Kelantan this year. Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim announced this on Friday during a work visit to the state.
He said 1,170 imams would receive 11.9 million ringgit, while 341 takmir teachers would receive allowances totaling 3.68 million ringgit, and 5,470 kafar teachers would get 82.79 million ringgit. This amounted to 103.86 million ringgit. Anwar added that the government also wants Islamic agencies to be the best examples in management and governance efficiency. This includes financial management and administration governance of Islamic affairs.
The Prime Minister also said that there must be thorough planning to ensure the East Coast Rail Line ECRL project is a catalyst for change in the East Coast region. He also denied allegations that the ECRL project was fully monopolized by companies from China.
The Prime Minister said more than 2,100 local companies, consisting of contractors, consultants and suppliers, have been involved in the project since 2017 until now. Meanwhile, Transport Minister Anthony Loke said his ministry would discuss with stakeholders of ECRL to ensure that passenger fares would be affordable to all Malaysians. The ECRL project is expected to be completed by the end of 2026 and to begin operations in January 2027.
Malaysia's economy recorded a better-than-expected expansion of 5.6% in the first quarter of 2023. Bank Negara Malaysia says this is driven by further expansion of household spending, an improving labour market and higher tourism activities, among others.
Recent indicators suggest that the economy is on a firm track to expand between 4 and 5% in 2023. Malaysia is not at risk of a recession. On a seasonally adjusted basis, the economy has exceeded its pre-pandemic levels. The labour market continued to strengthen in the first quarter 2023 and is expected to remain supportive of domestic demand.
The GDP growth met projections made by some research firms and banks, while beating bearish forecasts of below 5%. Moving forward, Noor Samsia said the headline in core inflation was expected to moderate over the course of 2023, averaging between 2.8% and 3.8%.
Can Malaysia sustain its positive growth rate over the next 3 quarters of 2023? Dr. Shankaran Nambia from the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research shares what can be expected for the second half of the year.
Realistically speaking, we probably could expect something like somewhere in the region of 3.7 to 4% for the second half of the year. Basically, I think that you would have to contend with the kind of external environment that you might have. Exports might not be as vibrant as they have been so far. I think in order to maintain this kind of a growth rate, you would need to have the kind of tourist arrivals that are being expected. I'm not terribly sure if that's going to materialize. The other question is, of course, what's likely to happen in the US? Are they going into a recession? Are they going into a slowdown? And that definitely will have impacts on our economy. Then finally, of course, there are geopolitical tensions. There's a lot of uncertainty on that. Is it going to continue, the Russian-Ukraine conflict? Is there going to be a conflagration? That I think has got another dimension to the kind of growth story that we are going to be able to tell for the remaining half of the year.
Establishing the Asian Monetary Fund is seen as the next step for Malaysia in strengthening regional financial cooperation. According to Bank Negara Malaysia's Governor, Tan Sri Nur Syamsiah Muhammad Yunos, several initiatives to foster financial stability in the region have already been taken since the Asian financial crisis.
ASEAN, together with the +3, Korea, Japan and China, we have come together to see how best then do we continue to have an efficient arrangement regionally to make sure that we continue to preserve regional financial stability. So this is not something that is new. We have been promoting that because giving businesses a wider range of options to do settlement can reduce the cost of doing business, and that is why the motivation for us to promote the use of local currency.
We will go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Serlakan keceriaan dengan Gardenia Quick Bites.
Ada lagi korang guna ni. Korang dah boleh tukar ke Ultra Box. Gempak habis. Cuma sambungkan ke internet. Macam-macam boleh buat. Kita boleh stream semua hiburan raya. Takut gangguan hujan? Relaxlah. Itu dulu. Kisah yang lama jangan diukir. Ada lagi. Astro Baharu ada macam-macam apps. Barulah meriah. Korang tunggu apa lagi? Dah Ultra ke? Belum.
Welcome back. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan is to be freed from custody a day after the Supreme Court ruled his arrest on corruption charges was illegal. Judges granted Khan protected bail, meaning he cannot be re-arrested on those charges for at least 2 weeks. Earlier today, Khan was brought to the Islamabad High Court with heavily armed troops and police as deadly clashes erupted across the country following his arrest on Tuesday. Nearly 2,000 people have been arrested so far, and at least 8 people have been killed. His supporters also attacked state and military facilities in a rare show of protest. The hugely popular Khan faces dozens of charges, from corruption to sedition, since he was ousted after losing a confidence vote last year. A conviction would disqualify the former international cricket star from running for office, possibly for life. On Thursday, Pakistan's Supreme Court ruled that Khan's arrest on corruption charges was illegal. Thailand Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha said he will quit politics if his party, the United Thai Nation, UTN, fails to secure enough House seats to form a government in Sunday's election. According to latest polls, the party of which Prayut is a prime ministerial candidate was far off his opponent parties, Partai, as well as the Move Forward party.
Prayut said if UTN wins only a small number of constituency seats, he will just retire from politics. He made the pledge while attending a campaign rally in the southern district of Pak Penang. The UTN will hold a final major election campaign rally on Friday. By law, parties must stop their campaigns before 6 p.m. on Saturday. 69-year-old Prayut, a former army chief, has led Thailand since a 2014 coup against Pertai's last government.
Meanwhile, Thailand's army chief, General Narongpan Jitkaewtee, has pledged not to stage a coup as political parties geared up for final campaign rallies. Narongpan told reporters on Thursday there would be no return to military rule, saying that the coups of the past were very negative. Voters are predicted to deliver a heavy defeat to the government of former army chief and coup leader, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, fueling fears the military may actually seek to cling on to power, having done so a dozen times, most recently in 2014.
Airstrikes and artillery pounded Sudan's capital Khartoum as rival military factions failed to agree on a ceasefire despite committing to protect civilians and allow humanitarian access. A so-called Declaration of Principles was signed in Saudi Arabia this week between the two sides, but neither has yet released statements acknowledging the deal.
The Sudanese army and rival paramilitary rapid support forces have not shown a willingness to end the fighting since clashing last month. The deal brokered by Saudi Arabia and the US would involve negotiations on securing humanitarian access and a ceasefire of up to 10 days to facilitate those activities. A UN senior official expressed optimism that mediators would reach a ceasefire in the next few days, saying that he had assurances from one of the sides that they would continue negotiating in Saudi Arabia. Previous ceasefire agreements have been repeatedly violated. The fighting in Sudan has killed more than 750 people. According to the UNHCR, some 200,000 people have fled from Sudan to neighboring countries since violence erupted on April 15th.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I am Fina Sheh. Thank you for watching.